You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
McDonald's from Talk Smack with Mac. Mac, what's going on, man?
What's going on? How you doing?
I got Justin Quinn. Justin, what's going on, bro?
Nothing much. Glad to be here.
Let's talk some NBA right now. How will the injuries of Spencer Dinwiddie and Kemba Walker affect the Celtics and the Nets moving forward? Mac?
Well,
I feel like with Spencer Dinwiddie getting hurt for Brooklyn, that's going to be huge. When they are reverting to their bench, when Kyrie and KD are just not getting it going that particular game, Spencer Dinwiddie was that guy that was supposed to come in, give that team some points, give that team some flair, and take the pressure off of KD and Kyrie. That's a big loss for them.
Justin?
I'm having trouble hearing another guest. But what I can add to the conversation is it's going to really affect the top of the race in the East for the Nets in that they have two injured players who aren't necessarily going to be able to rest, or recently injured players who aren't going to be able to rest and stay out of back-to-backs as much as they would like to, unless they want to elevate Karis LeVert off the bench. So that's going to definitely impact how that race takes shape on that side of the ball. On the other side, with the Celtics, it's not going to really affect too much, I think, because until Kemba Walker gets back, they're not going to be a contending team. We saw them steamroll the Celtics. So, I don't know. At least for the Celtics for right now, it's not a very big deal. But what ends up happening with Brooklyn, whether they decide to make a trade to pick up another point guard to help them out down the road to manage the regular season, I think that's going to be something to watch. But at least for now, it's not going to affect the Celtics directly until the end of the season.
Here's the thing. I've been very high on the Brooklyn Nets. I've been saying the Nets will get through the Eastern Conference playoffs in 15 games max, maybe even less. And I feel very confident saying that. The loss of Spencer Dinwiddie does not help them. Of course not. I think Spencer Dinwiddie is more of a luxury than a necessity. They have so many options, and they are so deep, so loaded. They don't have a weakness on their team. You have your MVP caliber player in Kevin Durant, who is returning to what we've seen him in 2019. As the season goes on, I only think he's going to get better. His Achilles injury, the fact that he returned 18 months versus 12 months is a significant difference. That's number one. Number two, Kyrie Irving is starting to make me believe he is a top two, maybe the best ISO scorer in the NBA. The way that dude could finish at the rim, finish in traffic, his mid-range, his shooting from three-point range, every angle you could look at, Kyrie Irving is a walking bucket. Karis LeVert, I personally like a little bit better than Spencer Dinwiddie. Karis LeVert, super athletic, could get to the hole, could stretch out to the three-point range. You also have Joe Harris, who is a sniper from three-point range. Last year, he shot 42% behind the arc. And then you got rim protection like DeAndre Jordan and Jared Allen. The Nets, every angle you look at, this team is stacked. I don't think it's going to kill them that bad. Does it help them? Of course not. But at the end of the day, the Nets will be just fine. In terms of the Boston Celtics, they, again, like Justin said, they're not contenders if they don't have Kemba Walker on that team. Kemba Walker is arguably their best or second player. I think Jason Tatum is emerging as a star in this league. Can he really carry them past a team like the Brooklyn Nets? Absolutely not. If the Celtics think they have any chance of competing with the Brooklyn Nets, they have to have Kemba Walker back in that lineup and back healthy. The Celtics have a lot to worry about if Kemba is not healthy.
I think with the Celtics, it's the lack of rim protection. It's not really having Kemba or not having Kemba. They don't have anybody that's protecting the rim. When you have KD and Kyrie slashing the basket, trying to make points, trying to get points in the paint, they don't have anybody to stop that. Like Jared Allen and DeAndre Jordan do one hell of a job of doing that down in Brooklyn. So the Celtics are potentially going to set themselves up with a potential trade. They have a lot of trade pieces, but they need to protect themselves in the paint, which they are not doing right now.
Coach, what's going on, bro?
What's good? What's good? How you guys doing today?
I cannot complain, brother. How you doing?
Doing good.
So we just found out Spencer Dinwiddie has a partial tear in his ACL. He will be out the remainder of the season. Kemba Walker will be out till about February. How is this going to affect the Nets and the Celtics moving forward?
With the Nets, I overheard your thoughts. I do like Karis as a better overall player. on both sides of the ball. But I think what Spencer gave was Kyrie an opportunity to play off the ball. And when he gets in that scoring mode, put somebody else to play the point guard and really facilitate and still consistently knock down a three-point shot. As good as LeVert is, he's not I don't think a consistent enough three-point shooter for a full season with all the pressure on him to consistently hit those shots. Will he become one? We're going to see. But I just like with Spencer, if Kyrie has to take days off like we saw last night, if Kyrie is really just going in scorer mode, Spencer is a proven point guard in the NBA who really can take on, starting role, facilitating measures that he has already this season. With Kemba, it's a really interesting dynamic because they got Teague this season, which I think Teague is an underrated point guard for so many years.
Right.
And, it's kind of it's weird. It's almost like that year when Kyrie got injured and the Celtics started playing, almost just as good or better. Teague can really move the ball. He's a veteran. He's a leader just like Kemba. You want to get Kemba, you want to get him as healthy as possible. But I think Teague can hold it down. I think that team can man their stations until Kemba gets back, and then they can be even better once he gets back from injury.
But why, in terms of, I want to stay on the Brooklyn Nets real quick. Why is it such a big deal if Kyrie needs to take nights off throughout the regular season or whatever? I feel like a team like the Brooklyn Nets, their mentality is just get to the playoffs healthy. That's all they should care about all year long. Because no matter what seed they are, I can't see a team even pushing them 6 games, honestly, let alone losing a series. Once you get to the playoffs, you're going to have a much shorter rotation. It's probably going to be about 7-8 guys. And the Brooklyn Nets are deep enough to really compete with just 7-8 guys. Does Spencer Dinwiddie help and he's a luxury? Of course, but I don't think he's a real necessity given how many options they have to just have a walking bucket. Kevin Durant, walking bucket. Kyrie Irving, walking bucket. Joe Harris, a sniper. Karis LeVert's another scoring option. Like everywhere you look, they have options where they could score. I don't think Spencer Dinwiddie is like, wow, like this could really kill our season.
Well, you exactly just said it. When you get into the playoffs, your bench tightens.
Right.
So meaning a guy like Spencer would have been on the court a little bit more, especially in end game situations. I just think, and also no team has pretty much, we saw what happened with the Clippers last year with, even though it was a bubble, sitting guys out, guys not getting to gel throughout the whole season. I've never seen a team win a championship sitting guys out the first year when they just got together. Even the Golden State Warriors played everybody that season when Kevin Durant first got there. LeBron James last year with AD, they went through the whole season together. It's just that gel factor, and you want to mentally prepare yourself to be the number 1 seed. You don't want to finish third or fourth and have to go play on the road against a Milwaukee or on the road, against the Boston Celtics. You want to finish first place, and that's why I think everybody's around Spencer, because he was the security blanket. Because Kyrie can get injured also. We don't know. Kyrie has never played really a full season as that guy.
Right.
We haven't seen it yet. So, that's why Spencer it was that security. We all like security. That's why we have savings accounts. All of us have savings accounts because just in case something goes wrong, we can go into that savings account and we can pay our bills. That's what Spencer was. If something went wrong with Kyrie, if something happened, you got somebody who is proven in the league, and you still can be as competitive as you are with anybody on the court.
Right. Justin? Mac?
No, man, you said it best. Spencer Dinwiddie is that guy. I feel like you're not giving him enough credit, because when the Nets had D'Angelo Russell and they were gelling and they made it to the playoffs, Spencer Dinwiddie was one hell of a
100%
part of that team. And when you take him away, yes, they have a bunch of options. They have a bunch of scorers, but he is that guy, like your buddy said earlier, that's going to have the ball in his hands, bringing the ball up, putting his team in the right positions, taking the pressure off of Kyrie and KD when they don't need to do that. It's a 72 game season this year. It's a long time. And there's going to be games when Kyrie and KD need that load lifted off of them. And Spencer Dinwiddie was that guy that was supposed to do it.
Do you think he would even close in their lineups like once playoff time comes? I mean, you have Kyrie, Joe Harris, KD, Karis LeVert, and Jared Allen. Now that kind of looks like how they would look to close moving down the rest of the way. You think Spencer Dinwiddie is really going to be that big of a problem? And I'm not questioning how good he is, because I think he's one of the better role players in the league. I believe he averaged like 20-6 last year. Like, of course, he's a huge part of this team. But I just think the Brooklyn Nets are significantly better than every other team in the East. I don't know a team who could really actually threaten them or really push them whatsoever.
What happened with the Clippers last year? I mean, just look. I mean, the Clippers were significantly better than a lot of teams, and we got into the Denver series, and it came down to who's going to stop Jamal Murray, who's going to stop those guys, Harris. Spencer plays defense as well. That's another thing. Kyrie plays no defense. So when you put Kyrie on the court, you're going to put Spencer on your best, on ball defender. So I mean, I think you're alluding to what we all know. Kyrie and KD are amazing players, but it goes to say about having a guy like Spencer. Every team has had one of those guys who's won a championship.
It's hard to compare them because the Clippers are not as good as the Nets, number one. Number two, the West is better than the East. There's no team in the East that's really I think the Nuggets are an underrated team. They're in a smaller market. They don't have the flashier players, which people really don't take notice of. And George Paul was disgusting last year. Yes, he played like George Paul in the playoffs. That was one of the most pathetic 3-game stretches I can remember a star caliber player having. I mean, the 10-point Game 7, hitting the side of the backboard on a 3-point shot. He was awful in the Clipper series, the Mavs series. The Mavs series got pushed 6 games because George Paul was atrocious in every single game. That was the only reason why that series even went that far. The Nets have not only, I think, better star power. KD's better than Kawhi. Kyrie's much better than Paul George. And then I like their bench, and they are a deeper roster. Montrezl Harrell also he did not really play what he did in the regular season. He was significantly worse. And Lou Williams was kind of inconsistent in the playoffs as well. I think chemistry-wise, the Clippers really killed themselves. I'm not crazy about Doc Rivers. I think that's a huge upgrade that they don't have him anymore. That's number one. And number two, I don't really like how they load managed and Kawhi and Paul George got the special treatment. I think that absolutely killed them all year long. Because every night they had a different starting lineup. And if you have a different starting lineup in basketball, how are you going to build chemistry or anything?
Exactly. With the Nets, man, they need to have that continuity going into the playoffs because, like you said, they are definitely the most talented, but we have seen the most talented teams lose, on the regular occasion. I feel like this last season, Sixers, man, could give a lot of people fits as long as they are rolling and learning how to get Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid to work together more. They brought in Dwight Howard. They have a lot of rim protection. They have a lot of defense. I don't see Danny Green.
Right.
And also, they have a lot of firepower around them to Joel Embiid to compete in the East if they stay healthy. And then in turn, they have that big man rotation to be able to walk and give players like Giannis or KD that drive to the basket and try to get points in the paint at times. They have those players that they also have firepower on offense to score. So I think if anybody's going to give Nets fits, it's the Sixers if they can stay healthy. So playing in the regular season and getting that continuity, that chemistry down is going to be very important with the Nets.
So, hey, what do you think, Brandon? I'll say this just to follow back. I think it's great it happened now. It gives them time to get that continuity. Have this happen 10 games, before the playoffs, then that changes your whole philosophy as a coach and as a team. So to know we don't have Spencer now, this is everyone's roles. The French shooter THG, I think, or THC, he's a guy that's going to have to step up and make some shots. Karis LeVert has to play more of a role coming off that bench and leading that second unit. You got 68 games or 69 games now to pretty much iron that out before you get to the playoffs.
I really feel like with that whole Nets team, all it's going to do is once the playoffs come, is players are going to got to play more minutes, which is not the worst thing in the world, given they are significantly more talented than every other team in that conference. And I think healthy wise, the Celtics would probably be the second best team in the East. If you want to argue the Heat, I understand that as well. But if Kemba's not healthy, I mean, they really don't have a shot. But again, the Celtics would have multiple scoring options down the stretch late in games. Kemba's a guy you could do it. Jason Tatum is really proven to be clutch. He did it the other night against Giannis and the Bucks. Jaylen Brown's really emerging as a star player in the league. I mean, that's a deep roster as well. But without Kemba, I just don't think they have enough whatsoever.
Do you think the Celtics can compete with the lack of big man presence?
I don't think they have a big man problem anymore. I mean, they have Tristan Thompson. I think Tice works well against smaller lineups. And Robert Williams is starting to look like he can actually defend and stay on the floor. I think the big thing for the Celtics really is going to be what they do with their traded player exception from Gordon Hayward leaving for the Charlotte Hornets. Yeah, that's going to be the key, I think, to whether this is going to be really a contending team or basically just kind of a repeat of last season.
Yeah, I mean, how much of a loss was Gordon Hayward? He wasn't very consistent ever since he had that catastrophic injury. He's never been that guy that we saw in the Jazz making those a couple All-Star appearances. He never lived up to be that guy. And if you are a Celtics fan, how do you want to pay Gordon Hayward like a max deal when he's not playing like one? Championship.
You gotta understand that Gordon Hayward, he had that injury, but when you have multiple 20-point scorers on a team, you're not always going to have that chance to shine. I'm pretty sure if you look at Gordon Hayward's numbers, his shooting percentages were all career highs last year.
Right.
He just didn't have the shot attempts because there's so many players.
But then you have to overpay him though. Then you have to overpay him with other guys, and that's not. I don't think he was worth the contract that he wanted if he was going to stay with the Celtics.
It was bad fit.
I feel like in the NBA, you gotta overpay players to keep them. There's so many guys getting max contracts that don't deserve it.
And those teams aren't championship caliber teams. Like the Bucks will never win.
Yes, they are. The Lakers was overpaying people last year that wouldn't get like where else is what's the I always forget the ankle bracelet guy. I always forget his name. I don't know why. KCP. Come on, man. KCP is not getting paid like that.
He just got an extension this year where he's making a few bucks.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They overpaid to keep some of that together. He made some shots and Danny Green was getting overpaid to me last year for what he was worth. I mean, I know he came from a championship, but they overpaid him because they knew like, okay, he's a vet. We're going to need him at the end. He can go anywhere else and get more money because people are going to take him, but we're going to overpay him slightly because I know he may want to win a championship. Every team that wants to win overpays people.
Not really, because the Bucks overpaid Chris Middleton, which is an awful deal, and that's not that.
We just said it. That you just agreed with me.
Yeah, they're not winning. They're not winning anything with him.
But they're contending. Every team that wants to try and win is going to overpay players to try and win.
The teams that actually win don't really overpay guys the least amount as everybody else.
You got to show me the numbers on that.
How much are they really overpaying Danny Green? I think he got $14.7 million in 2 years. I mean, how bad is that? KCP, I think, just got 4 years, $40 million this offseason, if I remember correctly.
I think it's 3 year, $40 million. I think KCP,
that's crazy.
Signed like similar. So going back to the Lakers, you say that they overpaid. Yes, they did overpay for KCP. I 100% agree. But then they got guys like Montrezl Harrell on a discount. They got Kuzma on a discount. So they kind of saved the money there. But what is the big difference the big difference of signing a guy like KCP who's getting like maybe $5 million overpaid versus signing a guy to a max,
Chris Middleton,
maybe 10 or 12 million more than they should per year?
That's the difference.
I mean, I guess it goes to the numbers, but at the end of the day, when you balance your budgets, it's still overpaying someone for their market price. Like that's not what the market would be if they weren't in a championship caliber team. You know, that's not what their numbers equal to. And championship teams will do it because at the end of the day, they'll bite the bullet to try and win championships. Golden State was paying people more than Iguodala. Iguodala.
Let's talk about that.
Steph, KD, Clay, and Draymond on one roster. They all took pay cuts. Katie took a drastic pay cut.
$80 million for Kelly Oubre.
Are you kidding me?
With tax, yes.
Now the Warriors are in trouble. Before,
how much was Iggy after? I know Iggy helped them win that championship, but I mean, they wanted to keep him so they could keep that championship caliber. But at the end of his career, he was not that player earning the amount of money that the Warriors were paying him. They were paying him for what he did for them and for just keeping the team gelling together. That's what championship teams always do. They always have that nostalgia, and they'll pay a guy more money to try and see, can we do a running back? Can we do it one more time? Even if they know that player is past his peak.
Yeah, but like Max said, there's a difference between paying someone a couple $1 million extra versus paying someone $12 million extra. Like with
it's
the Max.
5 and 12 is nothing in NBA money. We're talking about monopoly money here. There's no difference between 5 and 12.
Yes,
I mean, it's monopoly money. No, it's not.
No, I'd take that back because if you give a guy a max, say Gordon Hayward gets $38 million, he's locked up. He got that money. Or a perfect example, Gilbert Arenas back in the day. He got a $100 million contract. He didn't even play.
That's not even a contender, though. I mean, that was a different story. Gilbert Arenas and Gordon Hayward is two totally different stories to me.
Like Gordon Hayward is not.
I mean, the Hornets are not competing. I don't think the Hornets will ever be in.
Well, that goes to the small market situation where you have to overpay players to come play in your small market. Like players in small markets are not like the OKCs of the world, the Milwaukee's of the world, Chris Middleton, the Charlotte. Like if MJ is damned if he did, damned if he didn't. If MJ doesn't pay him, he has no one. Then you got a team full of LaMelo Ball, Bismack Biyombo, Terry Rozier, like that. He overpaid Terry Rozier. Listen, Terry Rozier was going to the Knicks. Deal was done. He was already going to the Knicks. At the last hour, they came in and went $5 or $6 million above the Knicks because they knew they had to in order for him to come to a small market.
Speaking of say that goodwill is killing small market teams, they're paying that extra money to come and play in our little town. Do you think that's what's really hurting small markets?
I think some of them are, because then you can't really put a team together that may compete. You can't get those, 6th, 7th, 8th man in your rotation where you can pay them the amount of money that you can give because you're giving it to Terry Rozier, who's a fringe starter, but is grossly overpaid. Gordon Hayward, who's not a max contract right now, but you have to pay him because you have to put someone in a max contract on your team.
Those things aren't helping your roster. Like it's like kind of like it's thinning out your roster, and those guys just aren't like. I feel like that's why you can never really win overpaying guys. That's one of the many reasons I'm like. People think I'm like a Bucks hater. I'm not a Bucks hater when literally my prediction of what they were going to do in the playoffs literally exactly happened. Between I think Budenholzer is an awful coach. I think Giannis can't close, which is a major problem. And then they overpay a guy like Chris Middleton, who is absolutely not a Robin on a championship team, and certainly not a max deal guy. Like things like that is like keeps teams from winning championships. But the Bucks had to do it. Like if I'm in the Bucks front office, I literally have to pay Chris Middleton because you can't really afford to lose him because of like you're not going to get anyone. You're not drawing anyone in to come play in Milwaukee.
Got to do it through trades. That's the only way you're going to get it done.
Speaking of trades, let's flip the switch a little bit. What team should trade for James Harden? Our Woj of this panel. Wom, talk to me.
I mean, it's tough, man, because there's a bunch of teams that should trade for him. Like, I think Portland should trade for him. I really do. I think Portland is a place where you've reached your peak unfortunately with CJ and Dame. Like I was in a conversation the other day. It was a great conversation about small scoring guards do not lead you to championships. The last small guard to lead his team to a championship and win was Isaiah Thomas in the 80s. Steph Curry led his team to a championship, but we all know that was by committee. As great as Steph was, Klay Thompson was amazing. Iggy had his parts. Draymond Green was a point forward. But Steph Curry, I'll give you maybe 0.5 on Steph Curry. But other than that, small guards get you points. They get you threes, but they don't get you championships. Someone 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" has to be the leader or the front man of the band. So, but Portland, you're not winning a championship with that team. Period.
How are you going to sell them on moving on from? I'm assuming Lillard is going to be your main trade piece in this, or like is it McCollum?
Yeah, McCollum.
They would have to keep Dame. If
you got to keep Dame. You got to put McCollum. You got to.
I don't know if I want McCollum though. I mean, that's the most attractive trade deal. At least if I'm Houston.
If you're Houston and you just was about to take LeVert, Spencer,
I don't think they are. They came out and said that if it's a dead deal with the Nets unless it involves Kyrie Irving.
That was after came into play? Who tried to bomb that deal? I think it was the Sixers. The Sixers. Yeah, the Sixers came and bombed the deal.
Why not the Golden State Warriors? The injury of Klay Thompson completely ruined any chances they had of competing in the Western Conference. I feel like James Harden can only play with certain guys in certain systems his way because he's so ball dominant. The guy always has the ball in his hands. And the thing with Steph could play with anybody in the NBA and be fantastic. I think he could play with any single superstar, all-star, star caliber player, and it will work because of how versatile he is. He could obviously create his own shot, the greatest three-point shooter we've ever seen, play off the ball and come off screens. A guy like James Harden dominating the ball on that Warriors team, people got to focus in on him. We know he's probably the best ISO scorer in the league. And then you have to worry about Steph coming off screens, playing off ball. That, to me, sounds like a defensive nightmare. I think that is a way the Warriors could put themselves in position to compete for the Western Conference immediately.
So what's the package for them? Wiseman?
Wiseman, you could throw Draymond Green in there. And who knows? And it's kind of –
I would never do that if I was Golden State. Never.
Why?
Because it just doesn't – it's not a culture fit. It's not a team fit. You have to understand GMs and coaches have something called culture and how they play. Like, it just doesn't fit. Like, Dame – like the way the Warriors play, that no one holds the ball for 20 to 25 seconds. Everyone is selfless. Even when Kevin Durant went there, he was a selfless player, even though he was the closer. Curry took a seat back and said, okay, we can run it through KD, but we know KD's a willing passer. Even though Harden is a great passer, it's just the way he plays doesn't fit that culture. And I don't think Steve Kerr is going to say, we're going to bend everything we built in culture-wise for James Harden for 1 year, because who knows if he'll resign to go and stay in Golden State. You know, so I wouldn't blow up my culture. Like Miami Heat they haven't won in a long time, but they have a culture.
Yeah, but James Harden he has to say publicly what teams he would want to sign long term for.
So this is the thing with Harden and his recent, shall we say, clashes with the league office due to COVID protocol and his trade requests and throwing balls at his teammates and all that stuff. I think there is something interesting going on in that his trade list was 1 team, then 2, then 4, now 6, and what's going on? Do people actually want to deal for him? I mean, I know that at least in theory, there are a lot of teams who would be interested, but I'm not sure that many teams are willing to give it the kind of price, which is, from what I'm hearing, a young player, like a foundational player, and a hefty load of picks. I'm not so sure that there's a good fit for that right now. He might be forced to spend that entire season, at least till the trade deadline, until somebody realizes there's no way they're going to make the playoffs or contend without a big boost to the roster.
Why would the Philadelphia 76ers not go after James Harden and give up Ben Simmons? We know the duo of Simmons and Embiid does not work. We know 100% their window to get out of the East, which wasn't really a window, was 2018. If you even count that, which I don't even count that a window. That was their best opportunity. Embiid got injured at the end of the year, and the Sixers were cruising behind.
Well, hold on. The Sixers are 1 bounce away from beating that Raptors team, and they could have won a championship against an unhealthy Warriors team. I think people have selective amnesia. Like they're 1 bounce away, 1 lucky bounce away from winning that series.
Overtime, so you can't call.
All right, but so they still could have won.
Sure.
So you're calling it like they had no chance, and I'm saying they had a chance. So we can't just say their window is abruptly closed, because the East has been, without LeBron James, the East is a revolving door. I mean, we're going to see what the Nets are going to do this year, but the East have been who's hot at the right time. You know, last year it was the Miami Heat. Like, who would have thought who would have thought last year before in the beginning of the season saying, "Oh, Miami Heat is going to win the East"?
Celtics. I picked the Celtics. That was me.
Exactly. Everybody picked different teams. I didn't pick the Miami Heat. I think I picked the Celtics too last year to win the East. But it could have easily been the way Miami ran through it. What if Ben Simmons wasn't injured in the playoffs last year? I mean, Miami Heat went on a run. How can we say that the Sixers couldn't have went on a run?
Because I don't. Who do they have to rely on at end of games to say, here, get me a bucket when we need it most?
The same person they had that they relied on when they were 1 bounce away from losing to the Toronto Raptors.
Jimmy Butler?
No, that he wasn't the go-to guy at the end of that.
They didn't have Embiid and Ben Simmons, man.
Yes.
To say that the Sixers are not in contention is crazy.
Now
they have 2 young guys that are still getting better. People sleep on young guys and think that everybody has to be superstars and win overnight. That is not the case. How many years did it take for Kobe and Shaq to gel together before they won? How many healthy seasons have Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid had together? How many good coaches? They finally got Doc Rivers, who I'm not really
exactly.
on him, but
if somebody's going to motivate Embiid to stay in shape,
you got to understand. Yeah, I agree with that. Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are 2 extremely talented players, both top 10 players in this league, or you could say Ben Simmons is top 15. And you are insane if you don't think so.
I am so confident there's not a team pushing the Nets more than 5 games. No way, no how. Despite Spencer Dinwiddie not being there, the Nets are just.
Now, what if someone gets injured? You'll change your mind?
No, of course.
That's very important.
Yeah,
What about COVID?
We're
What
talking
about
health,
COVID?
of course. Like if Kyrie or KD go down or something, obviously.
Well, not even Kyrie, KD. If Karras goes down,
Yeah, that.
you know, like anything. We're like 2 weeks ago. It was, or a week ago, after the first 2 games of the season, it was no one can beat the Nets. Period.
I'm
Then it was man. Now Kyrie and KD definitely got to be on because Spencer tore his ACL or partially tore his ACL. Next week it could be like that's just the fragility of sports, like the unknown on how someone's body. Look what happened to John Morant last night. You're a second away from losing it all with an injury. A second away from losing it all.
Look at Houston. Look at
Houston.
They're not even injured. They just have to sit out because of COVID protocols. And this could happen in the middle of a playoff series and just shift it instantly.
Right. Yeah, but here's the thing with the Nets. I think the Nets need 6 guys that have to stay healthy. If that's the case, they'll coast through anyone. Kyrie, KD, Joe Harris, Karis LeVert, DeAndre Jordan, Jarrett Allen. If you have those 6 guys, it's going to be hard for me to bet against them.
I lean towards you. I don't think anybody on this panel doesn't lean towards you, but from my history and our history of watching sports in general, I'm not going to discredit or say teams like the Sixers, teams like Boston, teams like Miami don't have a fighter's chance in a series. Like anything. Look at this. The Warriors were a couple 3-pointers away from going home that year when Houston couldn't find the ocean. When Houston couldn't throw a pebble in the ocean, the Warriors were on thin ice. Had to win Game 6 and then go win Game 7. And I bet you if I asked you before that series, you'd have been like, I don't see anybody pushing the Warriors to 5 or 6 games.
There was a narrative, like I wasn't in the media business then, or a media personality rather. There were plenty of people picking the Rockets to win that series.
Never. Everybody was killing Chris Paul, saying Chris Paul has never been to a conference finals. Everybody was killing James Harden and saying that style of basketball couldn't win the championship. Mike D'Antoni had never gotten a team to the finals. They were killing those guys. And then it changed to, oh my God, they're about to beat the Warriors. And then we're one CP3 injury away. We're 2 for 17 from 3-pointers away. And the Warriors
7 for 44. 7 for 44.
The Warriors escaped that series. So I think that's why everybody on the panel is saying we don't know. As great as the Nets are, I got to see it when it's do or die, when
times are of the essence and you got to perform. And I think we're all really sleeping on the Miami Heat still because when they match up very well against the Nets, you put Jimmy Butler on Kyrie and you put Bam on KD, and then you hope for the best. Yes, that's not.
And you hit a couple threes.
I mean, look at Jimmy Butler in the finals was absolutely amazing. That was one of the greatest finals performances I've ever seen.
He had 2 of those superstar-like performances, and that's the difference between a star and a superstar. Superstars do that on a nightly basis. A star could have a superstar-like performance, and then the next game they are wiped out. We see guys like LeBron have a monster 40-point triple-double. He'll come back the next night and do it again and play another 46 minutes. In Game 6 of the finals last year, Jimmy Butler, I felt bad for him. He looked just gassed.
Yeah, he was done.
He was going against LeBron and AD. That's not really fair.
He's going against Kyrie and KD with the Brooklyn Nets and with a deeper roster, no less. That's the thing why I can't say that he could beat the Nets. Could they squeeze a game and Jimmy Butler and other guys? And Duncan Robinson had a crazy, I think, what do you have, like 27 points with 5-6 3-pointers in that game? Like, he went off in one of those games.
Listen, you might go. You might. I kind of like how. I like how the
series. It's not March Madness where it's a 1-game elimination. Jimmy and Duncan and Tyler Hero could get super hot and defeat them. In a 7-game series, you can't rely on Jimmy Butler to give you those type of performances, which is what they would need to beat the Nets. That's why I'm totally sleeping on them.
I disagree because Tyler Hero is going to grow. He's going to get better. Duncan Robinson is showing that he's that guy. He can make shots. He's going to do it consistently, night in, night out. Jimmy Butler, he proved he's a superstar last year.
I even like the rookie.
And got to the finals.
What about their point guard, though? I mean, Goran's getting wicked old.
How old is he? 32, 33?
I mean, he's going to – sooner or later –
He's coming off the bench right now, right? He's coming off the bench?
But I mean, in the playoffs is basically their main focus, and I think that's basically going to need to be the case unless they make some kind of other move. Because I mean, who's going to be their point guard for them in his absence? I mean, like who?
Yeah, I mean,
Kendrick Nunn is gonna have to step up, but I feel like he's more of a scorer instead of a traditional point guard to get everybody set up and in the right place. But
he wasn't very good in the playoffs.
I don't.
Well, he didn't really play he really didn't play that much because he came back from sickness or something like that. And then by the time they started winning, they were winning already, so he was out of the rotation in the bubble.
But when he came back, he was putting up 16 to 20 points easily. This dude could get hot and score with the best of them.
I don't love the Heat because I don't trust them in a 7-game series to beat a team that's literally better than them. If you want to tell me they're the second best team in the East,
they did that last year.
They just mollywopped the Bucks last year, and nobody thought that they were.
I told everybody what was going to happen to the Bucks, and exactly that happened. Do not compare the Nets to the Bucks.
Did they beat the Celtics too?
Yeah, the Celtics are not the Nets. The Celtics are a good team. They're not the Brooklyn Nets. I'm with you. If you want to see the Heat are the second best team in the East, you have no argument from me. But comparing them to the Nets, I think
we don't know who the second best team in the East is. I think that's the joy of this season.
I would say the Heat. In the East, I would say the Heat.
Yeah, I can't say I know for sure. I'm not sure if the Heat are going to be like that for this whole season. I don't know if the Nets are going to get better. To be honest, I know you hate the Bucks, but the matchup of the Bucks and the Nets, I would love to see how that matchup goes in terms of players. Like I'm really thinking you got Giannis and KD. You got Holiday, which is underrated guard. He can't play on Kyrie's level, but you got Holiday. But then you got Chris Middleton as an X factor. He's not a superstar, but he's 18 to 20. Who's guarding him?
Chris Middleton is that perfect third guy that the Nets don't have.
They don't have that.
Hold on. I think the Bucks will get the 1 seed in the East, and Giannis very likely may win his 3rd consecutive MVP and be in a very special class with Larry Bird, the only players in NBA history to win 3 straight MVPs. He can do that. Maybe voter fatigue is against him. I could agree with that, but he will definitely be a top 2 to 3 candidate, the very least.
I don't think so. Because if you have Giannis come up and put 30 and 13 again, we've already seen this. He's already done it. He's already won the MVP twice, but he has not won a championship.
That's going to hurt him.
Yeah, I feel like him being in the MVP race, he may be top 5 just because he puts up crazy numbers, but he's not winning a championship, so he is automatically nullified from the MVP race.
There's no narrative. There's no narrative for him.
Yeah, but the thing with the Bucks, why they won't ever win a title – in the playoffs, the postseason and the regular season are literally 2 different seasons and 2 different types, 2 different styles of basketball. Regular season guys are taking nights off. They're load managing literally in game defensively. The speed of the game is faster, more transition basketball, more pushing the pace. What's the playoffs? Defense, keying in on guys for 2 weeks. It's more half-court basketball once you get to the playoffs. The Bucks half-court offense is atrocious. Giannis gives you nothing in the half court late in games. That's your best player. Your best player you have to rely on to close. Those teams are not successful if your best player can't close out games, you're never winning a title. You're not beating a team that's better than you or even near on your level. That's why the Bucks lost last year. It wasn't the Bucks weren't good enough. It's Giannis couldn't close. That's why they got absolutely annihilated by the Heat.
Are you suggesting that 32 minutes a game for your best player is a little low for the playoffs?
Totally.
He needs to be playing like 38, 39 minutes for
sure. He never got used to that as well. That didn't help the situation either. 37 of the Bucks' 55 wins last year came by double digits or more. So they're not in a lot of tight games. And then, like Justin said, in terms of how many minutes Giannis is playing, he averaged 30 points under 30 minutes. And again, they're blowing teams out, so you're going to play your best player less minutes.
I think that changes this year. I don't think you see that many double-digit wins by the Bucks. I think the East is better. I think, like you said, when you got to go against the Nets a couple more times, when you got to go against the Miami Heat that has, they've been through it. They have confidence. You got to go against the Celtics now. You got to go against, who else you got? Even the Pacers. The Pacers are pretty good. Pacers are pretty good too. Sabonis is getting better. I just don't think you're running through teams like you used to. And then you got teams, the changing of the guard, who still can win games like Toronto Raptors. On a given night, if you don't play hard, they'll sneak up on you and give you a loss or two. So they're not gonna be beating teams 33 times this year. I think by double digits in the East.
That's fine, but But could James Harden join any team in the East and they actually could compete with the Nets? So I think the Nets. Everyone should agree on this that the Nets are clearly the favorites. Like in the East, like no one's.
They're the favorites, but I'm not gonna like the way you crown them is like you got the pom poms too much for them.
They
like
haven't
just say,
proved.
yeah,
They
just
haven't
say they have the
proved
best on paper roster. Like, but I'm not gonna go up the roof and be like, oh, no one can beat them. No, somebody can beat them.
I don't.
Somebody can beat them.
Because it's not March Madness where it's a one game elimination. Like you could be cold that night. You could have guys who have a superstar like performance, and that's how they get beat.
But have we ever seen it in the NBA where the best team has not won in the playoffs?
Yeah, we have.
So why can't it not happen to the Nets?
Because I don't think any team could actually match up with
them.
them.
Why do you not? But we've seen other teams not match up with other teams like Golden State Warriors. We've seen last year
the Warriors and the Cavs.
No, the Warriors and the Cavs for one. They once, that's one. But for two, the Warriors, when they didn't lose, but like we just alluded to talking earlier, they were moments away from losing to Houston when nobody thought about it. In hindsight, now you can say, "Oh, I never thought they would lose," but we all thought they were gonna lose that season. I thought they may lose that season.
I think the problem with that 2018 Warriors team, all year long, they actually didn't have. Oh, another thing, there were a ton of injuries throughout the season. Guys were in and out of the lineup. They had a stretch where KD, Steph, Clay, and Draymond were missing time.
That's going to happen this year for the Nets. That's the same thing that's going to happen for the Nets.
You can't say it's going to happen.
No, it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. We just saw it last night. They're going to rest KD and they're going to rest Kyrie.
Are different things. Like
no, to me, it's the same thing when you're not getting on court reps. When you're not getting in game situation types reps, it's going to deteriorate from when you go into the playoffs and you're not at full speed. I've never seen a championship team rest their players and be successful in the playoffs. It has never happened for their first year together. Their first year together.
Guys, I don't think
fair.
I think the way the Clippers overdid it. I think the Clippers overdid the load managing. I think the Nets are going to do it like on a second of a back-to-back and not just take off 25% of the season. And KD, but it's in like Durant's best interest because he's coming off a catastrophic
100% it is. It's in Kyrie's interest too, who's never been healthy during the season. I'm just saying that when you get to the playoffs, like you just said about the Bucks, when the Nets are going to smack a lot of teams this year in the regular season. The Nets are going to smack a lot of teams. They're not going to be in a lot of close playoff defensive-minded games where it's coming to one or two possessions in the last 4 minutes and every possession counts. I don't know if everybody's played a sport at some point in this group right here, even if it was pickup basketball. Even in pickup basketball, we all know when it gets to that last minute or point game, it gets tight.
It does.
It gets really, really tight. And if you haven't been there as a unit, teams who've been there before, you got to give them some kind of credit to be together a little bit.
Wait, last thing before we switch to NFL, talking about when things get tight late in games. That's why I'm so high in the Nets. There are not two better players in the league, you could argue, who you want to close out games and give you a bucket when things are tight. KD, Kyrie. And if you're going to ask me, they may be the two best ISO scorers in the league. The Bucks do not have that option.
What happened the other night to them?
It's the third game of the regular season, dude.
But, no, that's a shot. But I'm just trying to say it's a shot. I'm not trying to say it's going to happen, but it's a 50. It's a shot. You're going to be in tight game. It's a shot. Kyrie was on fire, and KD takes a normal jump shot that I would bet money on. He makes 99 out of 100 times, and it's a shot. Like that's what I'm scared of. When they're going to be in games and they're not blowing teams out. And it gets to the end, they're giving a team a 10-point cushion, and they fight back at the end. And these are pro basketball players on both sides who can make shots. I got the Nets coming out. I just don't think it's as easy as you make it sound. The way you make it sound just makes it believe sweet city.
Because I don't. The Bucks don't have that guy who could get you a bucket when things are tight at all. Their half court offense is terrible. The Heat. We've seen they can do it consistently, and it's a 7-game series. The Celtics, again, they can do it occasionally. I don't think they can for a 7-game series.
They're too young.
That's the thing. That's why I'm so high on the Nets. Not only their star power, the deepest roster, two guys when things get tight, could deliver on the biggest stage.
When the Detroit Pistons beat the Lakers and the Detroit Pistons went on that magical run, the year before they went on that magical run, you would never say any of those players would be able to close a game against a championship contending team. It's not like history does it a lot, but I can point out different teams who have come out of nowhere and become that team. The Knicks of 99, even though it was a lockout year.
Right.
The magical 99 Knicks team, the Detroit Pistons teams of 04. Who else do we have? That Toronto Raptors team with Kawhi that went to the championship and won. Kawhi in San Antonio was little bro. He averaged 16 or 17 points. It was just a collective effort. All it takes is 1 year for a team to do it, to prove it to everyone. Until then, they haven't done it. So it's instances in history of teams that have done it. That the year before, you would never say someone on their team is going to be a closer. And they've done it somehow together as a collective team. Last year before the Miami Heat, I wouldn't put my dog on the line to say the Miami Heat was going to go to the championships last year. But they did it. They did it. So, I'm excited. I'm excited.
That's how we're gonna wrap up the NBA segment. Coach Justin, thanks for tuning in. If you want to stay on for some football, feel free.
I don't know enough about football. I like to listen to
Here,
it. So
man.
I'll let you guys go.
Football panel. Got Chuck.
We got Charles. I just want to see Declan. Okay, you got
There he is.
You got
What's
some
up, Mac?
firepower. What's up?
What's
We got some
going on?
firepower on here. All right, I'm gonna watch and listen to y'all. Y'all guys do your thing.
What's going
Take care,
on?
yo.
All right, thanks for coming on, Justin.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk some NFL. So the Pittsburgh Steelers finally got back on track, beating the Colts after being down 24-7, have a comeback victory, and beat the Colts 28-24. Did they prove to anybody that they are actually real contenders in the AFC to beat a team like the Chiefs or even the Buffalo Bills?
Go ahead, Declan. You got it.
Chuck, it's so great to see the both of you. Oh my God! I tried to get MetLife Stadium as my background. I don't know how to do it. It didn't work. Whatever.
I couldn't say hater. The big Jets hater.
I am not. I'm a Giants fan. What am I gonna do? Anyway, yeah. I mean, listen. I've been on the Steelers for a little while now, kind of since they were like 5-0. They definitely proved something. I mean, they proved that they could play from behind. They were down 21-7. Big Ben threw the ball 50 times. They have virtually no running game. They ran it so little yesterday.
They haven't all year.
And that's like going to be a problem. So if the question is if they can move forward and do good in terms of, dethroning the Chiefs or getting past the Bills, Titans, or anybody for that matter in the AFC, I'm going to have to go no in terms of championship contending. I mean, they'll be contenders, but they're not going to. I don't see them getting past the divisional round, to be perfectly honest. But I was impressed by Big Ben. I've been kind of hating on him all year, and I do think rightfully so, because that is it's a lot of weaponry, a lot of firepower on that offense. And I think he could have performed better. But the Colts should have won that game. I didn't like the way they played down the stretch, but the Steelers did impress me yesterday. They could play from behind.
Chuck?
How do I answer this? I think the Steelers could make it out of the AFC. It's going to be difficult because of all the ifs that surround the team. But what I mean by that is, will Ben's knee hold up? Will his elbow hold up? As Declan said, will their running game show up? How are they going to handle the injuries to their linebacking core? They lost Devin Bush. They lost who else? They lost Bud Dupree. They have Avery Williamson, who is a former Jet, who we know has dealt with injuries. TJ Watt has looked a little banged up recently. Their secondary is still pretty good. And I think and also, can Deontay Johnson hold on to the football? I think he leads the league in drops. So unless all those things, kind of sort themselves out between now and maybe not their wild card game, but more so of their divisional game, because they're going to play a tough opponent, probably Buffalo, in their divisional game. They really need to sort these things out in order to move on and possibly face the Chiefs in an AFC championship game. So, yes, they can, but it's going to be very challenging for them considering how poor they've played in their past, 5 games or so.
First of all, no way, no how are the Steelers coming out of the AFC. They're not better than the Chiefs, and they're certainly not better than the Buffalo Bills. Ben Roethlisberger, the more you ask him to throw the football, more times than not, which this didn't happen Sunday, but we've seen it through the course of the year, he's going to struggle more. He's going to turn the ball over more, and that's going to be a major problem. Roethlisberger looks like the Statue of Liberty in the pocket. I really believe a Tin Man could be more mobile than he is. He looks crippled. He does. Their running game is in the complete toilet bowl. They rushed for 20 yards as a team last game. I believe it's been several weeks that their running game has been non-existent. James Conner is not who we think he is. He is certainly not the Le'Veon Bell that people were trying to make the assumption was the year when 2018, I believe, when L. Bell sat out. James Conner is not that guy. We've seen it. The offensive line's having multiple problems. Juju Smith-Schuster is a great TikTok dancer, but I think it's time, you got to stop. And then in the defense, they're having problems in the secondary. So why am I to believe when in a sport like football, not the best team doesn't always win. We know that. We see upsets all the time, more so than a sport like the NBA. I always say a team who gets hot entering the playoffs, that's who's a threat. The Bills are red hot. I think they won their last 7 out of 8 games, and the one game they lost was DeAndre Hopkins' Megatron 2.0 Miracle Hail Mary. I believe that was the only game they lost in their last 8 games. Josh Allen is playing like maybe a top 3 quarterback in the league right now. Stephon Diggs is a top 5 wide receiver, if you ask me. Leading the league in catches, had a monster game yesterday against the Patriots. I think he had like 9 catches, 145 yards, 3 touchdowns. We need to put more respect on his game. Their running game is really solid. They rushed for 130 yards yesterday, along with Josh Allen's brilliant performances, which may be his best performance of the year. And their defenses have shown flashes of being elite. I think their defense is a little inconsistent, which could be their Achilles heel. But I like what I see from the Buffalo Bills right now. And then the Chiefs, we know what they bring. Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. The only way you're going to beat them is beat them what they are really good at and beating them in a shootout. I would never in a million years think the Steelers could beat the Chiefs in a shootout. They're like head-to-head a matchup. They don't match up well against them at all. So it's really hard for me where the people still believing in the Steelers think they could do something in the AFC.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem with the Steelers is that they don't run the ball, so they're forced to throw like 40, 50 times a game, but they don't throw the ball vertically. They've been throwing horizontal, and I don't understand how you do that when you have a wide receiver core of Juju, Johnson, Claypool, and even James Washington, who could blow the top off of a defense. But what I understand is, and what I see with most teams is that they don't give the ball to their playmakers. Juju is the best complete wide receiver on the Steelers without a doubt, but they don't force him the ball. And in one of their games, I think it was the Ravens game, where they were down in the first half, kind of like what they did with the Colts. And then in the second half, he came out and caught nine targets. That's what you need to do to get back into the game. Give the ball to your playmakers. And you can even say this about the Eagles. They've been having quarterback problems all year. Hurts might be the answer. Why don't they give the ball to Miles Sanders? Why does he only get 7 to 10 carries a game? Give the ball to your playmakers. It helps you on offense. That's why these guys are there. It's asinine to think that you're not going to give these guys targets for whatever reason. You give them the ball to move your offense, move the ball. That's the point of the game, is to score. But they don't do it. And then what did the Steelers do to come back against the Colts? They finally threw the ball long. Then hit, I think, Deontay Johnson on like a 50-yard bomb. That's what they need to start doing. Give the ball to your playmakers, and that's how you win games. Why do you think the Chiefs are so good? Because they feed Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. And when one is covered, the other one eats. And that's how they beat defenses, because you can't cover both of them. And
that's coaching, though. That's coaching, and that's your quarterback. Andy Reid's playbook is like no other. I love the play design the Chiefs have, which dynamic of Pat Mahomes and the way he can extend plays. Of course, that's the reason why they're so great. But Andy Reid's unique play style is like no other. And Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, Mahomes is getting them open with his vision. Playing the quarterback position is way more than just arm strength and accuracy. It's intangibles, it's IQ, it's knowing how to read defenses, look defenders off. We've seen multiple times Tyreek and Travis Kelce, their original route, they're not open. It's Mahomes extending plays, looking DBs off, and makes them wide open. That's another reason why their numbers have dramatically increased since Alex Smith to the transition of Mahomes. So I think Roethlisberger he looks like the Tin Man in the pocket. I don't know how else to say it. He looks like the Tin Man. He does. And with that being said, he can extend plays and he can move. So if your playmakers are running an original route, and if they're not open right there, the whole play's broken up. And you're not fooling any defense when you can't run the ball. Rushing 20 yards a game, like they rushed for 20 yards and they still won the game. That's not reliable.
The one thing I'll say about the Chiefs, though, is that, and I love Andy Reid. I've been a fan of Andy Reid even when I was I'm a Giants fan. Even when he was on the Eagles, I was a fan of Andy Reid. So I was happy to see him win last year. The one thing I noticed is they have the ability to get too cute. They do these ridiculous plays where they do spinning around, and that's cool and stuff. But then they threw a pick. Pat Mahomes got mossed by a Falcons defender, and according to Tyreek Hill. But even the Chiefs, like that game against the Falcons, like they played teams in the NFC South, like. They played the Saints and the Bucks. They essentially blew the doors off the Bucks early. Brady did come back, but they got both those teams with a decent margin. I think it was at least double digits in both those games. But then they played teams like the Panthers and the Falcons, and they beat the Falcons. I mean, let's.
They should have won that game. They should have won.
Anybody on the panel would have caught that pick. I mean, that was a gimme. You got to hold on to that. So they essentially, I don't want to say they won the game, but. And they should have won that game.
I hear you.
A 4-10 Falcon team. And even the Panther game, it came down to a long missed field goal from Joey Sly, the Gaines guy for the kicker position. But even still, like, those are two teams that are playing tough. Like, that they're playing tough when they should not be playing tough. They're playing down to their opponents. And that could be a problem that we see in the postseason, whether it is a team like the Titans or the Colts, or even the Bills. Listen, I think the Bills' defense isn't that consistent, and I think I don't even think they have glimpses. Let me get my vocals together. I don't think they have glimpses of talent on the defensive side of the ball. They're bottom 15. So that could be scary in the postseason. You want to go in with a good defense, but also, Brendan, to your point, like they are red hot. Like Josh Allen is the third best quarterback in the league right now. No doubt in my mind. He's the third. Unless you want to include Derrick Henry, he's 3 to 4 in the MVP race right now. He's not going to get it, not even close.
Yeah, of course.
But even still, that's where he is right now. He's got 34 touchdowns. He's got a chance. He doesn't have a chance for 40 because they're going to probably bench him next week. Yeah. But if they were a little worse, he'd have a chance for 40. Stephon Diggs, I mean, that trade from Minnesota and Buffalo is benefiting.
That was probably the best move of the offseason. That was the best move.
It was amazing. And which just goes to show you that the Texans and the Cardinals, the Texans couldn't get a first-round pick from Hopkins. And the Bills-Vikings trade, there was no first-round picks exchange in that, were there?
Yeah.
No first.
Yeah, because the Vikings got Justin Jefferson in that trade.
That was the Bills.
Yeah.
That just goes to show you how miraculous that the Giants got a first-round pick for Odell was, considering they got a long haul with Jabril Peppers, Kevin Zeitler, Dexter Lawrence in that first-round pick. Like, that's kind of insane to think about, that they couldn't get a first-round pick for Hopkins. And that's also more of a testament that to Bill O'Brien that the Bills got one for Hopkins. For Diggs.
Chuck?
Yeah, I think you guys put it great, but I think one thing that we have to look at while praising Josh Allen is how is he going to fare in the postseason? He has struggled before, and I think if they do go on and face the Steelers in the divisional round, even though I know I shouldn't, just count them as to moving on, how would Allen handle the pressure from the Steelers front four? I think you got to look at, yes, he could use his mobility without a doubt, but sometimes he can get careless with the ball, and sometimes he's really inaccurate, which could scare you. So I think the Steelers and the Bills will have a great game. I know the Bills beat them the first time around, but the playoffs is a different story, and the Steelers are definitely battle-tested. They have a great head coach in Mike Tomlin. So I'm really intrigued to see a possible Bills-Steelers matchup with the winner going on to face the Chiefs. Now, I don't want to, just say that those three teams are going to advance with no problem. But anything could happen. But I'm not a big fan of the Colts, and Sunday I think proved why. They can't finish games. Their secondary stinks. The Dolphins are whatever. The Browns they're whatever too. And then the other team is who's even the other team?
The Browns are literally and figuratively the wild card team of these playoffs. Literally because they have the wild card spot, and figuratively because I feel like they're the team that nobody knows what to expect. They could be the team that makes a little playoff run. Will they make the Super Bowl? No. A dysfunctional franchise with the Browns, some way along the line, something will go wrong. That's why I compare them to the 2010 Jets on my platform. I compare them to the 2010 Jets as both teams. They're such dysfunctional franchises, even though they're hot. They look good right now at times. We thought maybe they can compete for a championship. Some way along the line, something will go wrong. And the Achilles heel for the Browns, if you're going to ask me, it's Baker Mayfield. I'm not a Baker fan whatsoever. Being the number 1 overall pick and the amount of talent he was surrounded with coming out of the draft, he should be an MVP caliber player. You cannot tell me otherwise. There is no reason why Baker Mayfield is not a MVP caliber player. You have the best running back.
Hugh Jackson.
What was that?
Freddie Kitchens, Hugh Jackson.
Sure,
those are two terrible coaches.
Sure, I could give you that, but this year's a different animal. I understand the Odell injury was brutal. You still got Jarvis Landry, you still got Austin Hooper, got a great offensive line which they improved this offseason. The best running back duo in the league, and when you have a running back duo, Nick Chubb's a top 5 running back, undisputably. If you want to argue top 3, you're not going to hear an argument from me. He's going to get over 1,000 yards in 12 games this season, which is ridiculous. And then Kareem Hunt is at 800 yards right now in the season. That is what they're doing as a duo. Right there, it opens up your entire dynamics as an offense. So right then and there, Baker Mayfield should be having a way better season. I don't like his turnovers. He has bad pocket awareness. He doesn't see pressure. He's very careless with the ball. He can be inaccurate, very inconsistent. So right then and there, I can't trust Baker Mayfield to lead my team to a Super Bowl. Defensively, I think they should be better than what they are. Given the talent they have on that side of the ball, Myles Garrett has 12 sacks on the season. He's one of, if not the best pass rusher, definitely not the best. Aaron Donald is, but you get the point. Myles Garrett's one of the best pass rushers in the league.
You could say he's a great edge rusher. I think would probably be fair.
Denzel Ward is a proof he could be an elite cornerback. Like they have talent on the defensive side of the ball, but they're still in reality a mediocre pack defense. That's why I think that is literally and figuratively the wild card team.
I would say that's fair.
Go ahead, Declan. No, go ahead.
All right. So I would say that's fair. But the only thing I'll say is that the Browns scheme wise, like you said, they do have the best running back duo in the league. They're going to work off of their run game essentially. Now, Baker Mayfield, yes, he was a number 1 pick. Do we think he should have been a number 1 pick in that draft? No, I don't think. I don't think.
Who do you say? Sam Darnold?
Well, I mean, looking at it now, Josh Allen. I mean,
if I could pick my bets after games happen, I'd be a millionaire.
All right, but I think
even still, the Browns were looking at Josh Allen.
But I think
that was legitimate noise.
Now we could say, yes, it should be Josh Allen because of the way that he's performing. But I think Josh Allen's performance goes back to what the Bills front office and coaching staff has done for him. 100%. And if Josh Allen had, Freddie Kitchens and Hugh Jackson, I don't think he'll be playing to the magnitude that he's playing at now.
But that's my point. That's my point with Baker Mayfield.
No, because if you look at this season, Freddie Kitchens is out. Hugh Jackson is out. Their offense is just like the talent around him is loaded.
Yeah, they're loaded. It's a first-year head coach with no OTAs, no preseason, nothing, trying to gel. And listen, with the Odell injury, I mean, Baker's numbers and the team has been better since he went down. I hate to play that card, but that is the reality.
Yeah, it's inconsistent too. They just laid it.
But when he gets hot, he gets hot.
Yeah,
The Browns need to be a run-first team because, like you said, Nick Chubb is their best player on offense. And they went out, they signed Jack Conklin. And if you remember 2 years ago, I think first game of the season, they blew out the Ravens because they ran the ball right down their throats. And for some reason,
the Browns got blown out by the Ravens.
No. Last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but for some reason they want Baker to throw 40, 30 times a game, and you can't. He's not a quarterback that can do that. I don't understand why they just don't run the ball with Chubb and Hunt. That's what your bread and butter is for that offense. And a team that nobody is really talking about, get off topic for a second, is the Tennessee Titans. And I think they have the offensive game plan to possibly go into Kansas City and upset the Chiefs. And I say that because they run the ball a lot with Derrick Henry. And the more you run the ball and work that clock, the more Patrick Mahomes sits on that sideline. And that's the best way to beat the Chiefs is to beat their average defense and to not have Mahomes, Kelsey, Hill, whoever else they have on the field. So I think the Titans are a big sleeper. And don't forget, Ryan Tannehill, he's very good in the play action game. He's smart. He's a veteran quarterback. And Mike Vrabel is a very underrated head coach. And we saw that last year where he gave Bill Belichick a taste of his own medicine and upset the Patriots, then went on to upset the Ravens. And they had a big lead against the Chiefs early on, but then they decided to blow it. But they're certainly a sleeper team.
Derrick Henry, cheat code, flat out cheat code. You know he's getting the ball, and there is nothing you can do to stop him. He's a freight train. He's a locomotive. He's a physical freak of nature. He opens up that entire offense, and it's not people are honestly overrating Ryan Tannehill. I'm going to be honest. He's successful because of Derrick Henry. I'm not acknowledging Ryan Tannehill's not playing great this season because he is. This is all by Derrick Henry, how much he opens up. Defenses are only keying in on Derrick Henry. When you know he's getting the ball, they're not going to stop him. And once that opens up the play action, forget it. Tannehill has a clean pocket, has guys getting open because defenses are focused in on the run game. So I do agree with Chuck that can be a sleeper team to go against the Chiefs. I would never pick them in a million years because the Chiefs offense is simply just too explosive. Mahomes could flip a switch like a light switch and say, I will score 70 times in a row, and he'll do it. And the Chiefs will win. That's how great their offense is. So the Chiefs have a great run game too. On the other hand, Clyde Edwards-Helaire has proven to be a great running back, super explosive. Le'Veon Bell, I guess his days are kind of over. Sure, he's a nice piece to have as a second back. I think his days are kind of over. But a duo of Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill is, with Mahomes throwing you the football, the way he can extend plays, it's kind of not fair.
Yeah, I mean, just to offer a little pushback though, like to the Chiefs and with the Titans thing, I feel a similar way that one way to beat the Chiefs would be to keep Patrick Mahomes off the field. But on the other hand, the Packers had Derrick Henry on lock. They made him essentially a non-factor on Sunday night. So there is a way that you can make Tannehill beat him. And I think Tannehill is a very good quarterback. I think he's top 10, to be perfectly honest with you. He's had a very solid year. I would say he's had a 7th-ranked quarterback type year. But to offer a little pushback, on the other side of the ball, Aaron Rodgers, what he essentially decided to do in the Green Bay Packers was they did to the Titans what the Titans should do to the Chiefs to try to keep Derrick Henry off the field, as the Titans should try to keep Mahomes off the field. Aaron Rodgers decided they're keeping Henry off the field, and he went off and threw 4 touchdowns, made that a 19-0 lead early, and all of a sudden you're not running the ball. And that's going to be what the Chiefs are going to do to the Titans, and that's why I don't necessarily see the Titans as a threat to the Chiefs and their kingdom. Do I think that the Chiefs, listen, everyone's taking the chalk. No one thinks the Chiefs are unbeatable. I see a little scenario where they are unbeatable. They are beatable. I think that their run defense is bottoms in the league. Their pass defense, the noise they make isn't especially what I would call Super Bowl contending, although, yes, they're the best team in the AFC. Patrick Mahomes has proven he can have these weird games where he turns the ball over. I think he's undoubtedly the best quarterback in the league by a wide margin. I think we had the debate about Rodgers and Mahomes for the MVP last week.
That's over now. It's over now.
Since gone to Rodgers 100%. But even still, like I said, the Chiefs have been playing down to their competition. Do I think that Josh Allen can move the ball on the Kansas City Chiefs defense? 100%. I think that they'll be the biggest threat just for offensive purposes. I think the Bills defense can stop the run a little bit, but I don't think they're going to be enough to stop Mahomes unless they play the card of forcing the turnover. Put Trey White on Tyreek Hill for the most part, and you will see a little bit of a down factor from Tyreek Hill. Over the top, you know they're going to go over the top. You can put somebody on Kelsey. It's going to be so hard to stop them, but at the same token, playoff football, any given Sunday, anyone can win. And we've seen the Chiefs play down to lower competition, and I think the Bills are right up their alley, and they can make some noise.
Sure, but you can't say that with the Chiefs because guys aren't even they're not eating guys alive on their original route. Mahomes will extend plays and he will hold the football for 10 seconds outside the pocket. That's
right, but how did that go? How did that go on Sunday?
Yeah, it happened. You played down to your competition in a regular season in a game that didn't really mean much to them.
It meant enough for a first round bye. I mean, that's what that meant.
Sure, they're still probably going to get it anyways. They're 14-1 now, and the Chiefs,
Yeah.
They clinched it.
It's not the same feel as
they did.
They
it's still
clinched it.
not-
That's what I'm saying. That was for the bye week. That's why I think that was an
Sure.
important game.
It's still not flipping a switch like this is a must-win game. It's like it's important, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing in the Brady Belichick Patriot days. Like late in the season, they would be on the verge of clinching the bye. You know they would do it. Occasionally, you play down to your competition. They'd still find a way to get it. Like I really believe it's the same thing in that.
That's true. But week 17 games don't matter if you're not really giving your quarterback a go, if you're going to play him for a drive or not play him at all. But a week 16 game where the first round bye is in contention, especially now that there's only one bye, it's so important. I don't know what to make of that game. I don't think it's a huge deal, but at the same time, like this idea that the Chiefs, like they're going to go and beat everyone 45-0, like they won 17-14 against, or what was that? The score 27,
right? Yeah,
whatever it was.
Yeah.
A 3-point game where Younghoe Koo, I think I'm saying his name correct. He missed the chip shot field goal like for the only time all year. So that game should have went to OT. I'm sure the Chiefs would have pulled it out, but again, any given Sunday, and they hadn't looked particularly good that day.
Again, we're not saying they're going to win 45-0, but in the words of the great Al Davis, just win, baby. The best, a team like that.
That's right, but you did say that Mahomes can go and put it up 70-0 if he really wants to every Sunday.
He can.
What happened this Sunday? It was a 14-point game. It was 14 up.
I made an analogy about Mahomes in this Chiefs offense.
I can't wait to hear.
Yeah, I know Declan's a big Madden guy. When you play Madden, when you think you could go to the next level, you'll probably put your difficulty on all Madden, right? Sometimes if you do that and you're not used to it, you'll struggle throughout a game. When you're down double digits, you start to panic. Or even if you could keep that game kind of close and you get down to the fourth quarter and you want your franchise mode or your team to have the best record, like you just don't want to lose in a video game. What do? You could turn down the difficulty to about pro or rookie. That's what Mahomes does every single time he needs to come in clutch. He needs to make a comeback or he needs a game-winning drive. Every single time he's having a subpar game or his team needs him to come back and flip a switch, he does it every single time. There are numerous situations this year that he's not had a great game, but when they needed him to close, he's done it. No matter the conditions, no matter how he's played, no matter how his team's played, when he needed to flip the switch, he literally flipped the switch. We've seen it in the playoffs, and we've seen it again this season, and there are numerous times I could point to where when he needed to close, he closed out the game. That's why it's hard for me to see this team lose.
Yeah. First of all, listen, in Madden, I never lower the difficulty. I feel guilty when I'm winning in franchise. I make myself a 55 overall undrafted quarterback, and I go 3-0, and I feel bad.
You got
so then we turn it up. Then we turn it up to all Madden. I get your point. That's fine. Go ahead, Chuck. I know you got something to say.
I think the key person that's going to hold everything, hold the cards for another Chiefs repeat is Steve Spagnuolo. And I think their defense is the key because, as you said, Mahomes can go out and put up 45, but what about the Titans who have the number one scoring offense in the NFL? They could easily put up 45 themselves. And I didn't really I'm not buying too much stock into the Packers game because it was snowing, it was a cold game, and it's a warm city team traveling on the road to go play in the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field.
Kansas City, Missouri is not very warm.
No.
It's freezing. He's talking about the Titans.
The Titans.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Titans have to go into Arrowhead Stadium, which is not a very easy place.
Right. But in the snow, we'll see.
It's not warm, but Kansas City is smack in the middle of the country, so it might be snowing in 20 or it might be nice in 60. But I'm saying it's not somewhere where you go to Green Bay and it's 10 degrees and you're getting heavy snow for the whole game. So that's why I'm not buying too much stock into it. And I think run the ball with Henry and with A.J. Brown and Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith, I think the Titans could put up points on the Chiefs. It's just Steve Spagnuolo, who did a great job last year, especially in the second half, changing their defense, using Chris Jones phenomenally. Can he go out and do the same thing with this defense? Put Tyrann Mathieu in a situation to go out and make plays. How terrific was Mathieu last year? Especially in the postseason, I believe in the Super Bowl as well. Their defense is going to need to step up and make plays. And if they don't, the Chiefs are going to have to really start putting up points. And if Mahomes is not playing to his best of abilities, which he hasn't in the past 3 weeks, let's call a spade, they haven't been really good on offense, especially their offensive line has played very poorly.
That's been a big down factor.
And I know because of injuries and whatnot, and I think the bye week will help them tremendously. But if it comes down to the 4 teams of Chiefs, Bills, Steelers, and Titans, I'm not complaining because those are going to be really 2 good games. And I think on the AFC side of things, I think we're really set with great playoff teams. And there are great storylines with each team, no matter which one of those final 4 or 5 teams get in and one's left looking on the outside.
Emphasis on the AFC.
Against the Saints, Mahomes balled out, and against the Dolphins, he had a bad first quarter. He didn't have a bad game; he had a bad first quarter. That was it.
3 picks is a rough game.
It was a bad first quarter. In the last 3 quarters, he was phenomenal. I mean, that was an unbelievable interception, his 3rd interception.
Well, they only came out with that victory because Tyrann Mathieu stepped up. I think he had a big pick on Tua. So, once again, they're going to need their defense to step up. And Steve Spagnuolo is a good defensive coordinator, and he really knows how to turn things up when it matters most. And we got to see that happen one more time.
Yeah,
to go on another run.
Steve Spags, I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, he was the coordinator in 2007 with the Giants when they beat Tom Brady in the first Super Bowl. So he went up against potentially the greatest team, one of the greatest teams of all time. And he stymied them, held them to 14 points. So he knows how to scheme. He's a hell of a coordinator. He even came for a second run with the Giants. He won last year the Super Bowl, second with the because he only won one with the Giants. He won his second Super Bowl with the Chiefs. So he knows how to scheme. So again, while the Chiefs defense may be an X factor, and maybe I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here, they can scheme on defense to try to stop Derrick Henry. We saw the Packers do it this weekend. Snow or not snow, whatever you want to call it. They made moves.
Derrick Henry's a cheat code. He's literally a cheat code. Because I feel like in the AFC Championship game last year, they tried to slow him down and they couldn't. Like, each team knows Derrick Henry's getting the ball. The dude's closing in on 2,000 yards on the season. It's hard. Guys know he's getting the ball, and teams are literally trying to scheme for it, and it's literally not working. And
it worked for the Packers, though, in all fairness. But even still, while it may be the Packers defense scheme that worked, I undervalue that, and I overvalue the offense in Aaron Rodgers going up and getting up 19-0. If the Chiefs do that, you're going to limit Derrick Henry's. I mean, you're going to limit him as a whole as a running back in the game. And the Titans are going to go to the pass. They're going to rely on Tannehill, try to get the ball to Davis, Jonnu Smith, and A.J. Brown. Then it's going to get dicey for the Titans, and that's where they could fall off. Is their defense has been significantly worse than it is last year.
That's the problem going against the Chiefs. Chuck tried to say that they're a sleeper team. All that's going to do, like Mahomes is that's a team that you could have a field day on. Baker Mayfield ate them alive in one half. Can only imagine what Mahomes is at home in a playoff game when the stakes are at its highest. That's the problem.
Wait, but if I'm not mistaken, didn't the Titans come back and win that game?
No, they came close.
No, they came very close. Very close.
Right. But it goes to show that the Titans can go out and put up points without a doubt.
And that's also a testament that the Browns defense is
if you go down against the Chiefs, by double digits, you're staying down. Like, that's not a team.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one more team that just came to mind, and it goes off of Declan's point where you want a team that's playing hot, heading into the postseason, are the Ravens. Lamar Jackson has struggled this year without a doubt. He's not putting up the performances that he did last year. He had COVID, whatnot. Now, ever since a couple of weeks after the COVID, he's looked very good, I will say. And the offense has looked more structured, and the Ravens look really good. And that's another team that's going to be very interesting, especially depending on who they play in the first round if they get in.
Not happening.
And I wouldn't go down just yet.
No way. I'm not sleeping on the Ravens. I'm 100% snoring on them and hibernating on them. The Ravens are not. If the Ravens win one playoff game, I will be beyond shocked.
Here's the thing with the Ravens. Like their Achilles heel has been their inconsistent passing game, and while But here's we know obviously. I agree with you. I don't like Lamar Jackson. I don't think like him as a player. I have nothing.
Got you.
I don't think he's a great quarterback at all. I think he's he's one of the best running quarterbacks that we've seen. But in terms of a passing standpoint, make him play quarterback and you're going to win the game. But in terms of going into the playoffs, here's the deal. We've seen Ravens teams do it with worse quarterbacks. The Ravens have the 4th ranked defense in the league. So that's a top 5 team in terms of from a defensive standpoint already. Cumulatively as a team on the running side of the ball, in the running game, J.K. Dobbins, I think if Mark Ingram can get healthy, that works. They even give their ball to the fullback. Obviously, Lamar's a threat to run inside and outside, all over a defense. Their running game has worked good. So I see Chuck's point there. They're definitely an interesting topic. I think that they personally, out of the Browns, Dolphins, Colts themselves, I think they're the worst team out of the 4, and I think they don't deserve to go in the playoffs. However, they are playing Cincinnati, so they may see a way to sneak in. I'm not even sure who would get out because I think the Browns are going to beat the Steelers, starting with Mason Rudolph. The Colts don't deserve to be out of the playoffs, personally. I think their running game and their defense is too good not to be in the playoffs. Phillip Rivers has never been a playoff quarterback in my eyes, and now he's a game manager at best. Kind of a Statue of Liberty, similar to Ben and Alex Smith. Alex Smith, actually, who was a mobile quarterback, used Phillip Rivers' tape to learn how to play essentially without his legs. So I guess we'll see in terms of what that means for them going forward.
We have a little less than 10 minutes left. Let me flip the script for one more topic.
I'll get ready for these graphics, Chuck. Oh, it's already on the screen.
I love it.
Dude, you know me. I'm a big design guy. Things got to look professional. Is it safe to
designer shirt for the show?
Is it safe to say Cam Newton's days as being a starting quarterback in the NFL over? Declan, talk to me.
Is Cam Newton's days as a starting quarterback over? Yes, absolutely. Last night further proved the narrative that we've been seeing all year. It's just not working. He's, again, from a running standpoint, he's still got some, juice, some gas in the tank. But from a passing standpoint, he's just skipping one guy. He's throwing it down the field and, skipping it like rocks into a pond. And you can't do that. He's playing like he's 37 years old in the pocket throwing the football. He's 32. And some guys think that he's actually a future Hall of Famer, and I think we're clouding our personal bias and our feelings towards him as putting him in that topic. But this is a guy who's had a few good seasons. He had the nice MVP season. Again, running the ball great, threw the ball off the run. I don't know if he had 4,000 yards that year, but that's besides the point. This is just, at this point in time, this Patriots team is bad, but I've never seen a quarterback or even a player get made more excuses for them than having Bill Belichick as a head coach. It doesn't make any sense. And now I get it, his weapons are bad, but the Pats defense is top 6, top 7. That defense is still making noise. Got shredded by Josh Allen, but most teams have gotten shredded by Josh Allen in that Bills offense. There's juggernaut for sure. I would say Chiefs Jr. Not there yet, but still. I think Cam Newton is done as a starting quarterback. He's going to look at a backup role. Even last night, how many times have we had to see a quarterback get inserted into the game and not get the starting job? Cam Newton's been the starter for the entire time except when he had COVID. We're seeing Cam Newton get benched 4 or 5 times in this year when they're down.
He is literally a bottom 3, if not the number 1 worst quarterback in the NFL. His throwing mechanics are disgusting. It's foul to watch. There was one play in the third quarter that all hit me his days are done. He stepped up in the pocket, he extended a play, and he's so tight up top, he tries to force a ball about 15 yards downfield, and it goes 11 yards. That was the moment that it's he doesn't have it anymore. There's the throwing mechanics he does. He's not built like a quarterback. He's built like a fullback or a linebacker. 5 touchdowns in a 16-game season and 10 interceptions.
There's no defending that. I don't care who you're running out there.
It's not, the weapons is not an excuse for the poor performances, the poor throws he's making. His mechanics are awful. There's no hit mobility up top. He's too tight. It's awful. It's sad to see him go down like this. But his days as a starting quarterback are over. I don't even know if a team's ever going to sign him again after this. Honestly, Chuck?
I think he'll get signed. I don't think he'll be signed.
I do agree with Declan. I think he'll get signed to be a backup. The only way I could see him starting is because of an injury to somebody. Maybe the Bengals go out and sign him while Burrow recovers from his ACL injury. But other than that, I think the writing on the wall with Cam, we all knew it even before the season began. He was bad at throwing the football for the past 3-4 seasons. Ever since his shoulder gave out on him, and then he had surgery, and then he was in the car accident where his car flipped over. The guy has just been a hot mess on the field, and I feel bad because at one time he was filthy. And he carried, a Panthers team on his back to a 15-1 record and a Super Bowl appearance. This guy was really good. But I think teams started to realize that, the touches on his passes aren't what they used to be. This guy throws rockets on slants. We don't know why. And I think you can't overcome, efficiency with speed, basically. Just by throwing the ball, fast is not going to get it to where it needs to be. And I think all the injuries are starting to catch up to him. And I kind of blame the Panthers in a way because their offensive line was so bad after a while that Cam took hit after hit. And every time he would run and scramble, this guy would get hit in the head. And at one point I was saying to myself, I was like, why are the refs not, throwing flags? This guy's taking a pounding out there. He's taking shots to the head, shots to the ribs, shots to the knees and whatnot. And then he had the foot injury too, I believe. This guy, I think we're starting to see his body break down, and he's definitely nowhere close to what he was. It's kind of like what Andrew Luck went through, with the shoulder and everything. And now look, he had to go out and retire because he took too many injuries. And as Declan just said, he's now 32 years old, so he's not a spring chicken anymore, where he might be able to, heal quicker than once before. So I don't really see another team bringing him in as a starter, especially with the way that the QB class is for this year. You got, 7 or 8 guys that are probably going to be drafted within the first 3 rounds of the draft. So maybe they'll bring him in as competition, but I don't see him going to a team where he's going to be a day one starter right out of the gate.
Yeah, but on the other hand, he's also just 32 years old. And that's why this downfall so early is it sucks. It really does for him.
His body's break down when it's because he's not a pocket. It's not a clean pocket pass.
Not. Well, that's the game you play. It's a dangerous game when you're running that much. He's running more than any quarterback in NFL history, and it's not elusive scrambling. It's power running. That's just what happens. That's why running backs have such a short shelf life. But the difference between him and Andrew Luck is Andrew Luck was getting killed.
Yeah,
that offensive line.
Yeah.
Listen, I have a personal connection to Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck, my favorite quarterback of all time. I'm so upset he retired. I think about it every day. I cry myself to sleep because he's not in the league anymore. It's definitely not sad. Anyway, but the difference with Andrew Luck was that and this is why he was a better quarterback than Cam Newton throughout his career. Andrew Luck was getting banged up, getting knocked out, broken kidneys, shoulder messed up 7 times, concussions, everything. And he was throwing 40 touchdowns a year, leading his team to the playoffs, winning comeback player of the year. And he was a top 5 quarterback when he retired. Let's just face it. Top 5, if not top 3, top 4.
Definitely.
Mahomes, Brady, Rodgers. That's it. That's really it at that point. I don't even know if Brady was there, given where he was in terms of his age at that point. That's where I see. That's what I see, the difference between Luck and Cam.
And another thing that I didn't really understand with the Patriots is that they had all these designed runs for Cam. He was carrying the ball 15 times a game, and I didn't understand why. Why are you having this guy? You have, so many weapons in your backfield with, Sonny Michel, Rex Burkhead before he went down with an injury. Damian Harris looked really good. You got James White. Why is Cam running, 15 times a game? It wasn't making – and you're making him take unnecessary shots that he doesn't need to be taken. So, I don't know. The whole grand scheme of their offense this year was very suspect. I think they didn't know how to really transition from what Tom Brady was as a quarterback to Cam Newton. And Brandon, I think I told you this before the season even started. I didn't really expect much out of the Patriots offensively this year after watching them last year. Who was Tom Brady throwing the ball to last year? They had right.
Doing that in the second half of the year, N'Keal Harry. I mean, yeah, they didn't have.
Right, exactly. So now you're asking Cam, who's nowhere near the quarterback that he once was when he was, Cam VP and whatnot. You're asking him to basically outdo what Brady did last year. And Brady is, arguably one of the best quarterbacks of all time with almost the same weapons. And, you're not going to get that much results.
He's not Brady. He's not Brady, even 8 years younger.
But that's what I'm saying. And then on top of that, the Patriots last year, their defense was way better. And they established the running game early on in the year. I think Sonny Michel had a couple of 100-yard rushing games, but they weren't going to get that this year. And I just think they didn't know how to use Cam, and it just goes to show that he can't sit in the pocket and pick a defense apart. He just can't.
Sure, that's fair. But that's going to wrap up today's show. Declan, Chuck, thanks for joining me. Always fun to talk some football.
Anytime.
If I don't see you guys tomorrow, Happy New Year. And
Happy New Year, baby.
2021.
Yes, Happy New Year. Jet Set 2, don't forget.
Hell yeah.
Maybe at 4.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.